Every one of you has seen Stranger Things by now, and if by some minuscule chance you actually haven't watched it yet, why don't you crawl out of your cave and join the rest of society and watch this amazing show that you're depriving yourself from watching for no reason? Don't worry, people won't think you're just following a trend and just doing it because everyone thinks it's cool. That wave's already passed. It's just a genuinely great show. In fact, how on earth did 40.7 million people watch the third season in its first 4 days it was released? That's an insane amount of people. That's like if the entire country of Poland just sat down to watch the show. Every single person in Poland just sitting down at once to watch 8 hours of TV. What did Stranger Things do right that seemingly no other show has been able to do? Sure, there's been a few other big shows in the last few years, but nothing that's been anywhere as influential and captivating as Stranger Things. Why does it feel so good to watch Stranger Things? Why do I feel so attached to these characters even though they were just on my bad side the whole season? We're going to answer all these questions and dig until we found out how Stranger Things became such a hit, or until we hit the upside down. Either way, it's a win. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe. I'll be doing more Stranger Things videos as we get closer to season 4, so make sure notifications are on so you don't miss anything. The Duffer Brothers somehow managed to create something that feels like Stephen King, but shot through the lens of Steven Spielberg. Each season was made to be watched like an 8-hour movie told in chapters. And just like you, the first episode I watched, I was hooked. I had to start the next episode just to see what happens, and then next thing you know, you're too deep in to stop watching, and it just keeps happening over and over again with each episode until you look over at a clock, and then you realize it's 5 a.m. and you watch the entire season. This is the power of Stranger Things. One of the most valuable things there is today is someone's attention. With all of the distractions we have available at the edge of our fingertips today, to successfully hold someone's attention with them on the edge of their seat for 8 hours straight is absolutely nuts, and I've always wondered how. Right off the bat, everyone sold the show on nostalgia. And don't get me wrong, when you see this show, the setting, the music, the clothing, the characters, it transports you right back to the 80s. But you know what? I wasn't alive during the 80s, so I didn't get that trip back. The nostalgia factor works for the older demographic, but not so much for all the younger people that love it. In fact, the first few years it was out, I didn't watch it because everyone else was watching it, and I didn't want to just hop in line to do what everyone else was doing just to be included. If I was going to watch something, it was going to be because I wanted to watch it. I never saw the trailer, and hearing that it was set in the past actually turned me off of it. But for those who watched it and grew up as a kid in the 80s, it just gives you that feeling. The Duffer Brothers took inspiration from all their favorite 80s movies they watched growing up, and they created this masterpiece that feels like The Goonies mixed with E.T., mixed with Star Wars and It and Monster Squad. It just captures the feeling of an 80s movie so well. And it did all this while still being a well-told story that was paced well with an amazing cast and an incredible score. It's a fun adventure sci-fi flick that takes you back to those days of watching those same types of movies as a kid with your friends. Nostalgia will always be a contributing factor to why something is considered good. People are just so fed up with their lives and comparing themselves to others that watching a show like this reminds them of the good old days. Things have changed, and frankly, I don't think we'll ever see days like the ones we remember from growing up ever again. Stranger Things was a period piece. It was the Duffers' love letter to the 80s and the stories that helped shape their childhoods through that time. If you think about it, Stranger Things became one of the most successful pioneers in this new type of television. You don't have to wait to see what happens in shows anymore as they're dragged out across multiple weeks and months. There's no more structuring the show with breaking points throughout it for advertisements. This show was made to tell a story. The story was not made to fit the show's structure. The show was built around the story, not the time slot it airs on television or its advertisers or even what channel it's on. Each episode's length varies because it can or needs to be. They're not cut short to fill their normal time slot. If you remember, the cliffhangers are usually at the beginning, followed by the opening credits, and then the resolution is in the episode. And then it repeats itself by setting up another cliffhanger by the end of the episode instead of resolving itself after a climax like a standard television show would. And since the whole season is released at once, the pilot is incredibly captivating while avoiding giving too much away or piling anything on too high. And don't get me wrong, the writing and the acting and all the other core elements are amazing, but I think the new format and delivery of the show makes for better TV. A traditional network isn't able to do this because of their restraints, and I think that's part of what makes this show so great. And this can be said for all of Netflix as a whole in the way their shows are released, but I think this show did the best job while appealing to such a large audience. But you gotta remember, there's a huge demographic that has no idea what growing up in the 80s was like. All we know is the little bit of fashion, music, and television from watching the old movies. As somebody who was born in the 90s and grew up in the 2000s, this show holds no first-hand nostalgia factor for me. Instead, it's just a great show with great acting and a directing force that truly trusts the actors to handle their characters. But don't get me wrong, I love all the 80s feelings and movie references because when I was little, my dad showed me all the 80s movies that he grew up on as a kid, so a lot of what our parents grew up on got passed down through them to us. But if for some reason you didn't have any of that influence on your life up until now, when you watch this show, you can tell it was a passion project. They picked the best cast they could have for the job. It was extremely well written, and it has one of the best soundtracks I've heard in a long time. The show does a fantastic job of balancing the on-screen speculation with leaving the audience to figure things out for themselves. And in this show, the kids are actually kids, like believable grade school, middle school, and high school kids who act like kids really would. They're not this glossy and bossy stuck-up type of kid that Hollywood loves to overutilize. All the kids are adorable but look and act like regular people, not supermodels. Their bodies aren't perfect and they don't have the coolest clothes. They'll unintentionally hurt one another's feelings because they're not perfect. They play normal kids just like we all once were. The characters and their relationships between each other is what makes people come back. Seeing Dustin turn to Steve when his friends abandoned him in season 3 turned into one of the best character team-ups in the whole show. Hopper and Elle's story was one of my favorite things about the show, and Joyce and Hopper make a great team when they're not fighting. And we can't forget about the stars of season 3, Joyce and her magnets.
Magnets? Do you know magnet?
Magnet.
Yes, magnet.
And just like Joyce and her magnets, the rest of the chemistry between the cast was outstanding. Something that sets this show apart from the rest is that it has so much heart. I don't think any other show we've seen recently has as much heart as this, and a lot of it comes straight from the cast. But for how young some of the cast is, their acting was incredible. This show came out with some of the best character arcs. Yes, we're talking to you, Billy, and literally everyone else in the show. And they're what keep us talking about what happened to them even when we're not watching the show. Just take a look at my last few Stranger Things videos. People care. They did a great job building these characters up, and I'm so excited to see where they take them in season 4. This show gives you everything you loved about your childhood, packed up in a nice, neat little box, and takes you back to the days that will never be. What I mean by that is a childhood without technology. So many of us have so many great memories that we cherish from that time period because that's when we were shaped into the person we now are today. When we look at kids today, it seems like a completely different childhood. They're not doing the things we used to do. There's no more kids playing in the streets. There's no more calling your friends over the phone and hearing their voices. There's no more kids knocking on their friend's door to come out and play. Human interaction was such a big part of our childhood back then, and now people spend more time looking at a screen each day than they do someone's face. You know when you're out somewhere and you see a family having dinner or pushing their kid around in a stroller and the little kid has an iPad in their hands? Well, I'm not a big fan of that. Sometimes they're really little too. It's like the parents are just using the iPad to babysit their kid and keep them quiet, and I just don't like seeing that. It's like the 80s happened and the internet came about and technology became more and more mainstream, and it just kept going until we ended up where we are today. More technology, yeah, but at the cost of humanity. Technology has helped us improve our daily lives tenfold, but has also brought along with it a slew of negative side effects, and the loss of genuine human interaction is one of them. It's become a cold present, and the show reminds us of the warm past, the days that are no more. I think people not only love the show because of how great the core fundamentals of the show are, but also because it takes people back to those times that were the best. It's because people are sick of the things from the present and want things to go back to the way they used to be, and this show does that. It takes you right back. They've created such a lovable show, and I'm so ready for more time in the Upside Down. I loved it when all the kids ran in to torch the place in season 2. It was one of my favorite episodes. I have a feeling that this might be the last full season we get of Stranger Things, and I'm not too mad about it. Like I said in my last video, I would rather have not enough and want more than get too much and it ruin the show. But don't get me wrong, I'd love to see a satisfying conclusion tied together for them only to leave us with another cliffhanger before ending the show. I have faith in the Duffer Brothers that they can once again pull off something amazing just like they have for the last 3 seasons. Nostalgia was such a big part of this show's success for anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s, but the show itself is so well done in terms of casting, acting, story, music, everything. The nostalgia pulls you in and the show itself keeps you there. And trust me, you're gonna stay. If you're a fan of 80s pop culture, this show is for you. If you're a fan of science fiction, this show is for you. If you're a fan of mysteries or thrillers or horror, this show is for you. With a relatable cast and an engaging story combined with an incredible music score and amazing visuals, this show has something for everyone. And that's why I think Stranger Things was such a hit. If you enjoyed the video and would like to support me in the channel, please go down and hit that red button that says subscribe. I love to welcome new people to the community. And thanks for watching the video. And I know that some of you are subscribed but still haven't gotten notified when I drop a video, so make sure you hit that notification bell again and then select all when the option pops up so you don't miss anything. Let me know what you enjoy most about Stranger Things because I'll be responding to some of your comments and I'm kind of curious. Then click here to watch my Hopper Theory video and then here for some of my favorite Stranger Things videos that I've made. I hope you all have a great day, and until next time, I will see you in the comments. Peace.
Okay, you're freaking me out.
Yes, Magnet.